Hi Stampers, this is Melissa Johnson, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and you are Stampin' with MJ. I'm going to do my free monthly class. This month we are focusing on using a lot of the dies that are out right now because they are spectacular. So we're going to start with this Coneflower card, and we're using Coneflower Celebrations for that card. And not a lot of stamping on it, but the dies just work so beautifully. This is all the dies that you get with this set. So you get quite a few and quite a few of the stamps as well. So you can stamp the Coneflower and cut it out with this die, or you can use this die and create the Coneflower without any stamping at all. This is also a small note card. And I'm going to show you a sample of that. So on this card, which kind of sits kind of like a chair, step card, but here I've used the small note card, but I've also layered it by stamping with the stamps and then layering the die over top of that. So another great way to use that set. And then here's another card that I did. And I used this piece, and what I did is I color blended on white cardstock with a few inks, and then I cut all of that cardstock out with this chain piece, and I stuck it to one of our adhesive sheets on acetate. And so when I was done, I was able to fill the rest in with glitter. So another great way to use this set. All right, so let's get started with that card. The colors I'm using for this card are Highland Heather, Fresh Freesia, Granny Apple Green, and Darling Duckling. All right, so I'm going to put that aside. And here's all the pieces. I've gone ahead and done the die cutting because I don't want you to have to watch me just die cut. I'm going to show you how I shaded everything, however, because I think that's a good thing to show you. So let me grab a couple of blending brushes here. Okay. All right. So let's start by adhering a couple of things so we can get them out of the way. So on the inside of the card, this is a birthday card, we're going to stamp Celebrating You. And that comes from that Coneflower set. I'm using Memento Black ink. And I'm just going to stamp that right up here. Okay. So that's the Celebrating You. And then I apparently have ink on my arm somewhere. I'm going to glue this to the inside of the card. And I am using our Tombow green glue. You know, I was not a liquid glue fan until I got this glue press from My Sweet Petunia. Oh, I really have ink all over me. All right, let's try to take some of that off. So I'm going to use a sand eraser. And I'm just going to kind of go over that to see if I can take some of that off. If not, I will stamp something in it later to hide that. But I think that's taking it off. So that's good. All right, crisis averted. So we got that. So that's the inside of our card. Nothing real fancy because the fancy is on the outside. So I used the postage stamp dies, and I think I used the largest and then the second to the largest here. And we're going to stamp It's Your Day at the bottom of this one. Now this one is also from the Coneflower set. Make sure I don't have any ink all over me. I don't know what's going on there. But I'm just putting that in this lower right-hand corner. Like that. I'm going to zoom out just a little because I feel like you're not seeing everything. There we go. Okay, so we have It's Your Day stamped. And believe it or not, that's it for the stamping on this card. So let's adhere these. Oh, I have ink on my hand again. I know this will be hidden, so I'm not too worried about it. Well, maybe it will be. We shall see. All right. Apparently, ink is not my friend tonight. So this is what I was talking about with the glue press from My Sweet Petunia. It comes with 2 glue bottles and the fine precision glue tips. And it's just, you get a nice thin layer of glue without getting it all over you and everything else. That's the problem I've always had with liquid glue, is I don't like getting it all over my hands and everywhere else. All right, now we're going to adhere this layer to the card front, and then we'll start working on shadowing our coneflower. But see how nice and thin that glue is? Love that. All right. Now that's not to say that I don't, I'm not always clean. As you can see, I do still get glue on myself, but not as much as I used to. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of the inks. So let's start with the Darling Duckling. And I have this flower stamen area. And let's see, let me put a piece of paper under that, just so I keep my surface clean here. All right. So I have Darling Duckling and Darling Duckling ink. I am inking off onto my scrap paper because I don't want like those dark spots that get on when you first start inking. And you can see it's still a little darker over there, but I'm going to layer it to get it to the color that I want. And I'm not doing the whole piece. I'm just kind of keeping it at the top and going down the sides. Okay, so just gives you a little bit of shadowing there to make it look more realistic. All right, so now let's move on to our leaves. And I'm only going to do the detail portion of the leaves. So you have the detail portion, and then you have the piece that you glue it to the underneath. And I'm not going to do both, but I am going to do a little bit on the stem. Okay, so I almost put that in the yellow. I'm really making some mistakes tonight. All right, let's see what we got here. So now I'm going to take Granny Apple Green, again, inking off a little bit, and I'm going over the whole detail piece on this leaf, because I do want it to stand out from the base layer. So now when I put this against the base layer, you should be able to see, now we have 2 tones of green. So just a little something you can do with your ink. Now let's do that with this one. And this is just such an easy way to kind of bring life to your die cuts. Okay, so we've got that piece. And then on the stem, I'm just kind of inking the ends. Just so it looks like on this end, it's going to look like the flower's kind of shadowing it. And on this end, maybe it's, because it's coming up from the ground. So just adds a little bit of something to that. All right. Now we have our dark purple, which is Highland Heather. Now this one, I'm only doing the tips of the petal. I'm actually going to turn this piece of paper over so you can actually see what I'm doing there. There we go. Okay, so I'm just coming up from the bottom just to add a little bit of darkness in there. flowers aren't just one color, right? They usually have variations of color in them. So hopefully you can see that. And then we have one more to do. And this one is Fresh Freesia. And again, I'm just going to come up from the bottom. If you're wondering what blending brushes I'm using, these are ones I've had for several years that I got off of Amazon. And the reason I like them is I like that I know when I look at it, oh, that's purple. That's green, because I'm a visual person that way. And I don't have brushes for every color, but I do have them by color family. So I do like having colored brushes like this. All right, let's put this together now. So I'm going to start by layering the 2 coneflowers. And I'm just putting glue right on that centerpiece. I'm not doing anything with the petals. But I am offsetting this because I want you to be able to see both colors. So see how I have a little bit hanging off here? And that's okay. Because once we get this piece on, we can do a little trimming and you won't ever notice that. So now I'm going to put the stamen on, the flower center. Okay. Like that. And then I am going to trim this just a little bit on this side so you don't see that hangover piece. Okay, so there's our flower top. Now let's put it together, the leaves. My nails are not cooperating tonight. All right, here's why I like this. I can do tiny little dots. I don't have to do a ton of glue, which means it's not going to ooze out. All right, so I'm just laying those right on top of each other. Okay, so there's one petal. Now let's do this one. It's storming here right now, so hopefully we won't lose any power. I know we're, I think, under a tornado watch, actually. So that's always fun, right? Okay, so now let's look at our card front here. Here, let me move this out of the way, get our dirty things out of the way so we can see. So I'm going to put this, see, I knew that would be covered. My ink spot was saved. Okay, so I'm just kind of laying things out to see where I need them to be. So I know I want my stem on an angle like this. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put some glue on this and get that glued down. And I'm only going down the center because I want to be able to slip those leaves underneath it. Okay, so I kind of want to go off the edge, go up on an angle like that. Then I'm going to use some dimensionals on the back of the flower here. And I'm just putting 2 on there. Don't need a lot because I don't want, again, I don't want to glue any of the petals down. I want those to be able to, I kind of want to do this to them, give them a little life. Okay. All right, so then that's going to go like that. Okay. And then let's put the leaves on. So I'm going to put this larger leaf on this side so it doesn't end up obstructing my sentiment. Don't want to cover that up. And again, if this goes off the edge a little bit, it's not a big deal. I think it kind of adds to it. then I'm going to put this one on this side. I am moving this one up a little bit. That way I know it's out of the way there. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to take, this is ribbon from Celebration, but it is fresh freesia. And I love how thin this is. And I do like that it's wrinkled because it doesn't need to be perfect, right? So I'm just going to tie a bow. I like to tie my bows while it's still on the bolt so that I'm not wasting a ton of ribbon. I still have a little bit of waste, but not as much as I would have if I had done it like, you know, just taking ribbon off first. All right, so I'm going to use a glue dot to put that on. So again, I like to take the bow to the glue dot and then peel the whole thing off and place it where I need it to go. So this is kind of hiding the ends of those leaves so they look like they are more part of the card. Okay, so we have that. And then last but not least, now this was something I also got during Celebration, and it's these sequins, which I stocked up on these because I actually really like them a lot, and I wish we had them all the time, but can't always have what we want, right? All right, so I'm just going to use the ones that look like they're fresh freesia, and let's put 3 in there. Got something on there. What is that? There we go. That's card number 1. Isn't that beautiful? And it's not difficult at all. So I hope you enjoyed that set. I know right now the dies are not available as of today, July 11th, 2025. But they will be back in stock. So keep an eye out for that. And let's get going with our next card. Now, this next card, I'm actually going to have to grab my die cut machine because I want you to see how these dies work. All right, let me get some things out of the way here. And I'm going to grab my die cut machine. All right, so this next card, the dies cut partially. They don't cut the whole image out. So this is what we're going to do. This set is just beautiful. It is called Beautiful Motifs. And when you look at it like this, it's like, yeah, okay, it's all right. You know, there's some nice sentiments on it. However, the dies are what make this spectacular. So these 3 dies, partial die cut. They do not cut completely out of the card. They just cut areas that are raised like you see here. So we're going to use this one. And we're actually using these 2 dies as well on the card. So let's get started with that. So this one I'm using Petunia Pop. Well, I guess I should have given you some measurements. So this is 5.5 by 8.5. Scored in half at 4 1/4. This piece is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Okay. And then this piece is 4 by 5 1/4. So we're going to use this piece right now, and we're going to die cut this out of it. So I'm going to put it on here on an angle like so. And I might have to raise that up. I don't know that you're going to be able to see me die cutting this, but we will try. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is my giant albatross machine that, again, I've had for a few years. It's not the Stampin' Up one yet, but I do want to get that one. I have the mini one, and I do like it a lot. All right. So I'm going to bring this through. Sorry if this is shaking the camera. All right, move that out of the way. And then what we have is this piece. I'm just gently peeling that off. And then I'm going to kind of fluff these. Look at how awesome that is. I just love that it leaves it intact. It's just a really great, different look, right? Different layering look. So I'm kind of floofing these a little bit, because I do want them to stand out once we get the card made. Even that one. Even these little ones stand up. All right. So now we're going to add this fern piece, kind of like right here. And this is also from that set. That's this one. And then we're going to use this flower as well. All right, so this one, again, I don't want to tack this whole thing down. I just want to tack it in a couple of different areas, because I do want it to have a little movement that gives your card a little life. So I'm kind of keeping it to the bottom so that that top will kind of stand out. Okay. And I'm actually going to put it kind of under that leaf. Okay. So this is still, oh, helps if you let the glue dry just a little bit, right? All right. Then I'm going to shorten this flower a little bit, because I don't want it all the way up here. I want it kind of down like this so that both pieces stand out. So I'm actually going to snip it right about here. Just going to cut that off. And then, again, mostly gluing at the bottom. Now this one I am going to go up maybe just a touch higher so that it doesn't end up coming off. I have a cat that's trying to come up on my table. All right, there we go. Now, I used Petunia Pop Ribbon, which I believe this is on the last chance list, so might want to grab that while you can, because it is still a current color and it's great ribbon. It's nice and thin and workable too. All right, so I am going to use Stampin' Seal, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the back here on either end. So I'm not going all the way across, because as you can see, I'm just going to tuck those ends. Okay, so kind of center it where you want it, and then tuck it under. And that'll hold it in place while we go to glue it on the card base. Okay, like so. All right, so we just have a straight piece of ribbon across. And then I have a 5-inch piece that I'm going to slide under this, and I'm going to tie it in a knot. So kind of our faux bow, if you will. And I'm going to get that where I want it. And once I pull it tight, I can kind of get that positioned where I want it. And then I'll cut my ends. I'm not leaving them real long. And you got to do the angle, right? Because it's not a bow if it's not cut on an angle. All right, so that's most of the card, right? Now, let's add our sentiment. Now, this sentiment comes from Seaside Wishes, which is a nice, it's got some nice sayings. You absolutely made my day. Sometimes the simplest things mean the most. So even though it's beach-themed stamps and images, the sentiments are really great. So I have a hard time giving up stamp sets once they retire because I look at the sentiments and I'm like, I could use that. So I tend to keep most of my stamp sets. All right, so let's put this up here. And I am going toward the right just a little bit. Okay, so then there we go with that. Now we can add this to our Petunia pop layer. I gotta make sure I don't have ink on my hands anywhere. Nope, I think we're good. And again, I'm just using some liquid glue. Now this one I am kind of tucking in around that die cut image, just because if you're trying to fluff it up, you don't want your card base pulling up, right? All right, so this is going to be just a tiny little layer framing that. So just enough to make that pop. Okay, and then we'll add that to the card base. And again, you're just going to have a tiny bit of a frame border around that. And let's see if I can get that where I want it. Now this one's probably going to dry real fast. And the other one that I wanted to dry didn't dry. Because that's just how it goes. All right. There we go. Now let's add... I'm going to add these gems. These are called Starburst Sequins. So I'm going to add those. And I'm going to do a large one right about here. And then a small one. And another small one. Now, I like to do any kind of embellishments that I add in a triangle because that's what's supposed to be most pleasing to the eye. So if you're having a hard time adding gems and things to your card, think of that. It needs to be odd numbers and triangle. So even if I were going to add 2 more, I would do it so that maybe one was down here, so I still formed a triangle here. Or one was over here, so I have kind of a weird triangle. So just a little hint there. And then on the inside, we're just going to add a strip of Petunia Pop to the bottom of the card. And I didn't stamp anything inside this card because I want you to be able to write whatever you want in it, right? Sometimes we need to write a little note. Other times we don't want to, right? So we want to fill up the inside of that card so we don't have as much to write. All right. So there's the inside of our card, and that is card number 2. I hope you enjoyed these projects. Here, let me bring them in. So we have that card, and then we have this card. If you like my video, please subscribe and like. And if you have any comments, please leave them and I will make sure I read them, and I will be back again soon. Have a great night.